Ladies and gentlemen, the webinar will start in 5 minutes. So just 5 minutes to the start of the webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, the webinar will start in 4 minutes. So just 4 minutes to the start of the webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, webinar will start in just 3 minutes. So just 3 minutes to the start of the webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, webinar will start in just 2 minutes. So just 2 minutes to the start of the webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, just 1 minute to the start of the webinar. So the webinar will start in 1 minute's time. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar. And this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are, we are going to be talking about developing an effective through partner marketing strategy. So We have 5 great panelists, and I'm going to introduce them to you in just a moment, but just a couple of housekeeping things. So if we can have the next slide. Just a reminder, we have the live Channel Focus 25th anniversary conference. Yes, I have earned every one of these grey hairs at the Westin Carlsbad Resort on September the 13th to the 15th this year. So we will be announcing the agenda on Monday and look forward to seeing everyone there. Next slide. And next week, this event is completely free. We have the Women's Leadership Council spring meeting for it is women only. So for any women on the call, if you haven't signed up, it is a truly awesome event and you can sign up for free. And next slide. So we want you to get involved. These sessions are always really lively. You have a chat box below. So please get involved, please chat, please ask questions, please comment on what's being said so we can all get involved in what is a very, very important topic. So let me introduce our speakers. And our first speaker is Heather Margolis, and she's the SVP of Marketing for 360 Insights. Prior to joining 360, Heather founded Spark Your Channel, creators of a through-channel marketing automation platform, and Channel Maven, a strategic channel marketing agency. She was acquired by 360 in November 21. She's a recognized channel marketing expert and keynote speaker to a variety of audiences. And she grew up in Massachusetts and now lives in Boulder, Colorado, with her husband and fellow entrepreneur, Simeon, their 2 daughters, and a dog. So, Heather, you have 60 seconds to tell us about 360.
You're going to get the hook out, right, Rod? So 360 Insights is a leading channel engagement and business optimization company. That means we enable brands to better influence, manage, and engage their complex channel ecosystems. We offer a suite of channel solutions, including a powerful incentive management solution for consumer rebates, spiffs, volume incentives, MDF co-ops, sales allowances, and points programs.
Fabulous. Our next panelist is Laurie Harner, and she's the AVP of Product Marketing for E2Open. And in her role as Assistant VP of the Product Marketing team, Laurie leads the group that provides insights on the value of E2Open's channel shaping, business planning, demand sensing, collaborative marketing, and supply management solutions. Laurie joined E2Open in June of 2020, and before that, she held various leadership roles at Blue Yonder, Iptor, and Microsoft. Laurie lives in Denver, Colorado, and enjoys anything outdoors. So, Laurie, 60 seconds to tell us about E2Open.
Thank you, Rod. Yes, E2Open is not only a supply chain company, but also very invested in channel management applications. And so what we do is we help our customers through digital transformation through their journey with supply chain, as well as all 4 ecosystems. So if you consider channel, supply, logistics, and global trade. We've been around for about 20 years and have a really vast focus, like I said, extending beyond just supply chain into the channel management applications and ecosystem.
Fabulous. And our next panelist is Carlin Bentley, and Carlin is the VP of Client Partnership at Ansira. Carlin has nearly 2 decades of experience working with leading brands and their channel partners. She's grown Ansira's technology client portfolio by over 4 times in the last 6 years. And she has a global team with expansion in London and Sydney. She drives forward-thinking future enhancements and program modernization and has worked with companies like Dell, Red Hat, Citrix, Microsoft, Sage, and others. She's passionate about the culture and food scene of Chicago, living with her 2 girls and husband, Ben, but loves weekends away in Michigan. Presumably that's when the wind comes off the lake. Carlin, 1 minute to tell us about Ansira.
Thanks, Rod. So yeah, Ansira is an independent global marketing and technology services company We're here to arm brands and their channel ecosystems with what we believe is industry shifting services and tech to create local experiences. Some examples of our solution expertise includes experience design, email marketing, channel engagement, local campaign activation and execution, media, and web development, to name a few. Thanks, Rod.
Fabulous. And our fourth panelist is Gary Sabin, and Gary is the VP of Product Management for InPartner. He's been with InPartner for 7 years, helping brands perfect and deliver world-class partner experiences. He's got 2 decades in user and customer experience design across business-to-business technology industries, and he's a recovering gearhead and adventure seeker. So Gary, 1 minute on InPartner.
Thanks, Rod. InPartner has actually started out life as a marketing automation platform and has since evolved over the past 20 years into a partner relationship management platform that covers really the entirety of the partner engagement lifecycle, and delivers that seamless partner experience for brands to help leverage not only in their sales enablement for their partners, but also into their through channel marketing automation to help expand the reach that brands and vendors have via their partners. So a lot of people will know us for those 2 pieces, but aren't aware of the marketing background there. So we offer a suite of tools that complement kind of the holistic approach to both channel sales enablement and also funding demand to run into that funnel via through channel marketing automation capabilities.
Fabulous, thank you. And finally, we have Kevin Dean. Kevin is the Chief Strategy Officer at Mind Matrix. He's got 2 decades of channel experience. He's led digital programs at 2 Fortune 500 companies. He loves the music of all genre. He plays bass guitar. He'll probably end the session giving us a wee tune. And he's been scuba diving in the Red Sea and several other exotic locations. So Kevin, tell us a little bit about Mind Matrix.
All right, we're ready to rock on. So Mind Matrix is the leading platform for partner enablement. Well, we have one platform that's designed to seamlessly connect and enable both direct, channel, and also partner ecosystems. We help companies drive revenue growth through automating their go-to-market strategies. And when companies leverage our platform, they're better equipped to influence, sell, and retain their customers.
Fabulous. So let's crack on. We're going to be talking about developing an effective through partner marketing strategy. We're going to try and give everyone as much help and advice on what we need to do. But I think when we're looking at this, the first thing we need to do is set the scene. We all have a view of the partners, but Heather, you've been dealing with them for 20 years. What do people have to contend with? It's not one size fits all.
You make me feel so old, Rod. Yes.
We know you started at 13.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the clarification. You know, if you did a one size fits all marketing engagement for all of your partners, some of them would be too overwhelmed. Some of them would think that it was too rudimentary. And some of them would just go off and do their own thing, which is probably wrong. I once had a partner call me and say, I'm so excited. I found $5,000 and I got a billboard right outside my building. And I put one of those QR code thingies on it, which made me realize somebody was getting in a car accident trying to QR code thingy in front on the highway. So you really have to figure out first where your partners are. So scorecard them a little bit. Who's at least got social going, who at least has a website that can capture leads as opposed to just basically being an online magazine, and who is getting out there and doing account-based marketing and retargeting and digital advertising. So first is figuring out where your partners are and then building programs that they can take advantage of based on that level instead of their tier. I know we're moving away from tiers, that's a whole other webinar. Making sure that you're building your partners' marketing programs for them.
Okay. So Carlin, Heather talked a bit about understanding where your partners are. Let's drill into that a bit. What are some of the guidance you could give people on the kind of things that you need to do? Because you're not just trying to understand the partner, you're trying to understand their marketing expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, mutual objectives are critical to kind of a successful strategy. I think definitely assessing partners' maturity is important. But I also think, reaching out beyond the partners. So who are those people that the partners have been working with in the past? Like what kind of, anecdotal information can they bring to the table? maybe serving, an audience outside of the partner's perspective, and those who've worked with partners, I think is helpful as well. And then from there, I think you can gain, better ideas of how to measure performance and how well those strategies and things would work for partners as you're augmenting your strategy.
Excellent. And Kevin, what's the role of the vendor? You've got these partners, you've now done some work to figure out who's the good, the bad, and the indifferent when it comes to marketing. What's the role of the vendor in training the partners? Is there a role? What should a vendor be doing?
Yeah, the vendor has a very key and critical role in helping to guide partners to make sure that they're making the right decisions. And just kind of piggybacking on what Heather was saying earlier, once the vendor understands where each of their partners are, they need to make sure that they're providing their partners with the right content that's going to be useful for them to be able to have a connected and message that is really aligned for both the partner and the vendor as well.
Mm-hmm. And Laurie, any insights on partner training? Because I know that's a huge challenge for a lot of people running these programs.
Yeah, and I'm somewhat going to echo what others have said, but it all depends on the level of maturity of where the partner's at. For instance, if you've got a partner, just because they're small doesn't mean that they're not sophisticated, right? So oftentimes you've got to gain a better understanding of where they're at from a training perspective. And so having dealt with a lot of partners when I was a practitioner and worked for the vendor, we had that exact situation, right? So for instance, we had very small players, but very focused players, right? So their marketing initiatives and their partner needs were different than those that were well established, and basically we're handling, again, multiple products, not only from us as Microsoft, but also with other competitors. So really understanding where they're at in their maturity and where they're at in their maturity journey is really key, I think, in helping guide not only their marketing incentives, but their training activities as well.
Excellent. And Gary, any other thoughts on that one? Because you've got partners at different levels. How do you create some kind of training program that's meaningful? And indeed, are you seeing a trend where clients are beginning to look at marketing as one of the core competencies and reward those marketing skills?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the critical things that where we're seeing a lot of folks spend a lot of their time and attention is they've kind of got established the, once I have the sales automation and the lead and pipeline management to actually run all these things through, right? Then they kind of move up to the next step of how do I generate more demand to funnel into that. And then they run into the challenge of the, if you build it, they will come fallacy kind of coming into play. So a lot of emphasis that we see across successful channel programs who are really doing this in really kind of taking and understanding what is making someone successful in that in terms of partners and what a successful channel marketing manager, for example, is actually taking those folks by the hand and helping them walk through that journey and become not only assess their maturity as others have mentioned, so you know exactly kind of what sorts of tactics, how leery you need to be about what they may or may not do with your brand left unsupervised, right? And then ensuring that they're sent down the right sort of in as automated and scalable way as possible, which is sort of the whole point of the channel to begin with. Getting through and navigating the how to be successful, having a plan, knowing what sorts of capabilities and things are available to them, and that just sort of being turned loose into this big marketing jungle and being wished good luck. So I think that's really a big area of focus. I think that winning brands are spending time with right now is how to truly enable them to be successful with what you're doing, especially even for that longer tail of partners out there.
And Heather, if I can bring you in on this one, give us some insights. I've got partners that are fabulously successful at marketing. They've got a whole marketing team. I've got others where it's the CEO who hasn't got a marketing background doing marketing 2 hours a week, if we're lucky. How do we provide a program to meet the needs of very, very different partner skill sets? And we want to automate it. I've got 5,000 partners. I can't give each of them their own unique program. What should I be doing?
So my favorite analogy is the receptionist is part-time VP of marketing. I'm like, wow, that was a bump. And usually the significant other of the business owner anyway. So I think it's really important to figure out a one-to-many. So we talked about training. Is the training in bite-sized snackable elements that are loaded to your portal or to a platform that partners can get it at 3 o'clock in the morning if they want? And then the assets themselves, the resources themselves need to be broken down into ways that the partners can access them. So we Channel Maven used to do campaigns in a box, right? 5 years ago, I said, no more campaigns in a box. Partners aren't leveraging them in that respect. They need to be broken down. Here's just email copy. Here's email copy in an HTML if that's what you want. So it needs to be choose your own adventure. It can't just be, you have to send it through us. You have to figure out how to load your list. Because the partners need to be able to access it the way they want. The larger nationals, right? If you walked up to CDW and said, you have to use our email platform, they'd say, you have to go somewhere else because we're not going to do that. So it's really important that you have elements that can be scalable or can be just bitten off as they need to be.
Excellent. And Carlin, if I could bring you in for a moment, one of the other complaints that partners have is it is so difficult to get approval for the campaign, and it takes forever to get paid. What advice have you got for the people on the call to tackle those two issues?
I think it's kind of hitting on what Heather says. I mean, I think variety is the spice of life. So I think if you have a hub for the content and people can easily access it, and I think having a variety of tools for partners to leverage will hopefully make that process easier for them. And then obviously connecting whatever incentive-based program you have running alongside your through channel partner marketing, through channel strategy is important as well. So making MDF easy and accessible to offset the cost of maybe opting into campaigns. You know, some of your larger partners, you know, might have in-house agencies, right? So they just need to have quick access to, you know, maybe some, you know, a dam or something like that to pull content down for. But, you know, other partners need it all packaged together. So, you know, while, you know, you want to rip apart the campaign in a box, I do think that is a necessity for some earlier stage partners, right? Or partners you're in the process of onboarding for the first time, right? Or maybe our smaller startups, right? That really need to understand how to connect their message to yours. So, you know, I think variety is the spice of life. Definitely integrating that incentive or MDF or co-op or whatever that, you know, funding component it is to make it easy for them, you know, to offset the cost of maybe opting into a prepackaged campaign is important as well. And then again, just also offering some partners to do it themselves, right? Like if they know what they're doing, a CDW, let them have at it, you know, because they know what they're doing better than probably you do.
And Laurie, concierge marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what it means. Tell me how you use it. Tell me who it's right for.
Sure. I was going to expand on that as well as kind of piggyback is concierge marketing is really for the person that needs that little bit more guidance, right? You have to have a variety of different mechanisms as well to communicate with those types of partners. So again, if you take a step back and you say, okay, we're going to provide exactly what we talked about already, the templates, the marketplace for the more sophisticated partners, the marketing in a box, whatever it might be. Concierge services are for those that are just getting started and need the ability to go ahead and communicate with the vendor in a different formats. So it could be, I always say this to my team as well, as email isn't always the best mechanism, right, for communication. Sometimes it's phone, sometimes it's text, sometimes it's, yeah, right. Everybody's just surprised with that, but you've got to have a concierge service that offers those types of communication mechanisms in order to get to the right person, to get the assistance you need. And again, for those sophisticated partners that will come in and say, well, you know what, we just want to create our own things. Yeah, you provide a marketplace for them, you provide agency support for them. But for the ones that are just starting out, or in some cases diversifying their portfolio to get into another set of, another competency, they may just need a little bit of extra assistance. And so to have that ability to reach out in a variety of formats and get the assistance that they need to take them to the next level is really important from a concierge perspective.
Okay. And I saw you nodding frantically on that one, Kevin. So if I could bring you in, anything to add to what Laurie had to say?
Yeah, this is a very important topic, and it really is essential to understand what's going to be good for each of your partners. I think we've heard the analogy, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day, teach him how to fish, he'll eat forever. And that's true, but sometimes partners are just too busy, too nonchalant, and there could be a variety of other reasons where they don't want to learn how to fish, but they still need to eat, and you may need to feed them. So you do really need to understand and have systems in place to be able to address the needs of each of your partners, and concierge services is one way to do that, but also making sure that they understand the value of your messaging, your brand, your products. All that type of training is also necessary as well in order for each of them to be effective.
If I could jump in there, Rod, I feel like the one thing that goes wrong with concierge marketing is a lot of our clients would come in and say, we want concierge marketing for our top tier. And we would say, your top tier doesn't need it. But
Right.
there's this whole group just below them who are potentially growth partners. Maybe they're not doing as much with you because they're working with your competitors, because the competitors are giving them the concierge marketing. So just make sure you're giving it to the people who will actually be appreciative of it.
Mm-hmm. And Gary, if I can bring you in on a tricky question. Used to be you just took all the lists from the partners. You basically ran a whole load of marketing campaigns and everything was cool. That's not that easy these days. What about privacy? What about GDPR? How does that affect what we can do? And there's a lovely question for someone to answer.
Yeah, that's a fun one. I think that the answer to that is actually going to vary a little bit, again, kind of on this trend of there are sort of three different groups of your partners in effect, right? So you've kind of got your big multinationals who know what they're doing. You're sort of enabling them, and there's a certain amount of trust that they're going to be doing marketing, and that you want to be verifying that they know exactly what the implications of all the in the theaters in which they're operating and the privacy things and going on within that. Same thing to a large degree with your concierge group, where you're actually sort of funding that second tier. I think where that comes into play a lot is particularly in that longer tier of partners, or the kind of the long tail or third tier, as we often refer to them, where you're actually kind of more not enabling their marketing, not hiring, like having someone else concierge their marketing, but you're sort of doing the marketing for them, right? And that's important to help them be effective in that you're sort of automating the marketing that's happening for them. You're truly kind of reaching out through them, and you're getting the mutual benefit, but you're also sharing the mutual liability there. And so where we really recommend that the effort is placed early on, as in the onboarding portion of that. You're not just training your partner, but you're doing some experiential sort of active training where you're actually ensuring and improving that they understand how to bring in lists and what is appropriate for that list, the amount of vetting that needs to go into that list, all of the things that, as you're going to be, especially if you're providing tools, for example, leveraging some platforms to do that, you're assuming essentially some amount of risk in so doing, and potentially even liability. So that's not something that you can leave to chance. You need to make that a very integral part of your onboarding and training portion of bringing those folks into and ramping them into the system, as well as doing some periodic audits. And there's some automated ways to sort of do that, those kinds of things. But the worst thing you can do is end up with some things on a domain blacklist because of something that somebody two steps down the line did that you overlooked and weren't on top of. So the world is less forgiving than it used to be in that regard.
Can I jump in here and say that GDPR and the privacy issues that are being brought about by Apple and Google, I think it's a blessing and a curse for marketers. One, it's a blessing because honestly, none of us like being tracked. None of us like cookies, and well, we like cookies, but pie too, but not.
I like cookies.
Yeah, but it is a good thing because no one really likes it. But it's a curse because it's making us change the way that the tactics that we used to use, right? We just can't buy a list and then blast, thousands of people. We can't just, put out these retargeting ads, that we used to do before. And so we have to think about different tactics, but that's another blessing because it's making us all be better marketers. And I think it's important that it's going to help our partners to be better marketers, because oftentimes that's what they do is they're like, okay, I've got some money, I'm going to go buy a list. And then they just blast. And really that's impacting their brands in a negative way. And so this is really going to help in a positive way. But it also means that all of us have to continue to be better educated and learn better tactics and how to serve our customers.
I would add one other thing as you evaluate and make those plans. Plan for, you know, the highest common denominator, if you will, in those privacy. I mean, you know, early on we had a lot of clients who were, you know, saying, we don't need to worry about the GDPR because you were only dealing with US-based partners, right? And so they didn't really establish the policies, processes, you know, and everything that goes into that based off those standards. And lo and behold, those same sorts of standards we're now starting to see in other jurisdictions as well that come into play. And now we, you know, there's potentially sticky situations. So I think you kind of just need to go for the again, the lowest common denominator with that and tool for that, and assume that that's going to be the standard that you're going to work with, you know, worldwide, not just in particular theaters and areas.
Can I jump in too? I was just going to say, I think it also is making us focus more on empowering our clients to look at first party data. I think, you know, a lot of times, you know, you overlook the fact that organic growth is probably the largest revenue driver, right, for any company. And I think, you know, with more of a focal point on that moving forward, I think, you know, retargeting and working with your existing base is also critically important. It's forcing us to kind of look back at first party data more regularly than we previously were as well.
I think too, as the one company that doesn't have a 3-channel marketing automation tool, we're seeing more and more partners sort of go the LinkedIn route. Like, I'm just going to jump on LinkedIn and connect with prospects and then do updates, and that is the way that they should start those relationships in the first place. Just to Kevin's point, just blasting an email, the person's going to unsubscribe immediately and then they've lost them forever. So starting smaller, there's a book by Simon Sinek, The Infinite Game, that talks about, instead of incenting a salesperson just for the sale, where they're going to like do whatever it takes to make the sale, but then they've lost follow-on business because maybe they oversold, or maybe they offended, or maybe they were too short and they were so focused on closing it by the end of the quarter. Incent them on activities, incent your partners on connecting with prospects on LinkedIn. It's the right thing for them to do. Sure, they're going to make that sale, but then it's also going to help them for the long run because they've learned how to be a better salesperson or a better marketer.
Excellent. And Kevin, bringing you into this just for a second. We've talked about privacy, we've talked about Apple versus Google. Let's get specific. What kind of marketing, what are the things that you're seeing that are being most successful for your clients at the moment?
Yeah, right now, video is amazing, and video in snackable bite-sized chunks. Kind of to what Heather was saying, leveraging LinkedIn to really build an audience. I think that's really been super effective. And additionally, we think about making sure that you're being consistent in whatever you're doing, making sure that you're building awareness. And the last thing is really just educating, right? Think about being educators instead of being promoters.
Excellent. And Laurie, any other insights on that? What's working? That's what people on the call want to know. What should I be doing? What should I be encouraging my partners to do? What are the kind of campaigns that are driving success at the moment?
A couple things. I love the bite-sized digestible content, right? I think people are, especially in today's day, getting Zoom fatigued and they're getting a bit, you know, tired of being on video, but I think they still want to watch videos, and to provide multiple mechanisms, like for instance, you know, smaller video chunks, maybe break up a customer testimonial in smaller pieces and say, hey, do you want to learn more about this customer and more about their journey, more, you know, that type of video segment. And then podcasts also, because people like to consume information from, especially from we're getting inundated with information, right? We're getting tons of information thrown at us. So we want to pick and choose, but we also want to pick and choose the mode, if you will, of whether I want to watch a video or sit down and watch a video, or if I want to just listen to it on my way to work, or if it's something important, you know, I'll set it aside so that I can consume it at a different time. But I think what we're seeing too is the days of large, you know, extensive white papers or, you know, glossies, especially with all of the concerns on sustainability in our environments now. It's really more about digitized content, more easier to consume content, and also just provide it to me in the different modes that I can, don't have to just sit down in front of a laptop to, consume what I want to take in. So that's what we're seeing.
Okay.
I would add to that to that point. I mean, I still sometimes shake my head. We were just at a trade show last week. I think a lot of folks on the call probably were in channel partners, and the amount of paper handouts and things that you just know are going to end up in bins on the way to the airport. But the digital and the ability to now take on like alternative, not just the old email tactics, right? The different tactics and things that you can leverage gives you the ability to be a lot more hyper relevant, right? So, and really, I think the way that we always are advising and coaching folks is channel marketing is not any different than any direct marketing that you're going to be doing, right? And it's just adding that sort of layer in between of you're going to have certain partners who really play well in certain niches, in certain industries, for example, right? And that's sort of why we're marketing through partners to begin with, is they're going to have specific reaches that, in a large global, shotgun approach, we're not going to have. And so rather than having to be pretty generic around, hey, we do these sort of fluffy generic things, you can be very, very hyper focused in your digital marketing to use terminology that is going to be very specific to, if you've got certain partners who are really in the education space, or they're in telecom or whatever that is, you can do campaigns that are as detailed and as hyper relevant for that sort of audience and firmographic that you would do for your in-house normal direct marketing, but you can do those as pass-through to those vendors. So being very aware of where your vendors play, where their reaches are going to be in, and then funneling those types of campaigns through them, I think is where we're seeing people have actually a lot of huge benefit. Another thing is just in continuing the discussion of tactics that maybe help us to be a little less, running afoul of some of the privacy concerns and things. Paid search, things like that, again, kind of able to get, you're going to be spending the money, generally speaking, is if you're talking a large multinational, they're spending the money on those things, but being able to funnel those same funds, but very hyper local through partners, for example. We're seeing a tremendous ROI on paid search as compared to some other tactics that folks have historically been doing prior to coming and working with us, for example.
Okay.
And I'll say,
Carlin, hang on a sec, Kevin, let me bring Carlin into this, because one of the issues, I had a lovely conversation yesterday with a CEO of a channel partner. And the conversation, it was quite a long one, but I'll summarize it. He said, basically, I can't use most of my vendors' marketing materials. He said, I am branding my company. I am not spending my time pushing my vendors' brands. It's an increasing problem. Carlin, what do we need to do about it?
I think it goes back to having something for everyone. I think, your co-branding solution has to be flexible. And I think it has to allow for more involvement from, the vendor versus the client's content being pushed first. I think it definitely has to be a collaboration. And, I think a lot of times those types of situations are handled offline, but there are systems and workflows in place that can make that easier, that more, intense customization process, so that the vendor gets their kind of content in, their version of the story, right? And leading with their brand, right? And I think the clients need to be, and the brand need to be okay with that. A lot of times, they're like a CDW might be more well-known, right? Than, the solution they're selling or co-selling with you. And I think you need to be okay with that.
And Kevin, I cut you off, so let me bring you back in now. Any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, so I do want to just kind of bring up something old and something new. Podcasts are making a resurgence big time. So a lot of people are really tuning into podcasts. And we've seen a lot of vendors who are creating sites that kind of correlate some of their partners' best podcasts. That way they can serve them all up. And that's a co-branding, co-marketing initiative that works really well. So that's kind of an old thing that's being made new again. And then rating and review sites, right? I think this is something that is super important, super needed, is the promoting and getting partners to have better reviews and reviews at all across a lot of the sites. I think that's something that is critical that we really need to start thinking and talking more about.
Okay. And Heather, a question for you, coming from one of the audience. The high-end campaigns targeting 3 to 5 accounts basically work. And I guess when you're looking at that sort of thing, how do you build that into an overall campaign? Because it's very hard to automate that sort of thing.
Right. And I saw that question, Nellie, and love that we're back there, right? Like 25 years ago, when I started in marketing, we would send people an empty pizza box and say, let us come in and present to you and we'll bring the pizza. I think they are working to certain roles. So I'm now head of marketing at a SaaS-based platform. In the last month, have gotten Nikes, a Lululemon gift, like a big Lululemon gift card, like I'm going on a shopping spree, fine chocolates, 2 bottles of wine from one company. I mean, I'm getting in it. It doesn't suck. So the challenge is your partners are not capable of this. So if you are doing that, you're doing it on their behalf and you are standing with them side by side saying, we're going to do this campaign. Your name is on it. Our name is on it. We're doing this together. You're going to get the lead. I think the thing you do need to be careful of, like I had no intention of buying what the company who sent me the Lululemon gift card was selling, but I really like Lululemon. So you just need to make sure that they are your absolute targeted account. They've raised their hand. Maybe they've downloaded a piece of content, but not just like anyone just because.
And Kevin, coming back to you for a second, setting expectations. You're getting your partners moving. You're trying to get them to be more effective marketers. It's not an overnight sensation. How do you set those expectations? How do you make them understand that this is what you're going to be looking for as a result of the effort you're putting into this campaign?
Yeah, that's a big issue. And it's something that we have to, as vendors, continually educate and be upfront. And we have to be upfront about it. We have to talk to them and let them know that it's not going to be an overnight thing. It's going to take time. And then we also have to make sure that we're being reasonable in our expectations as well. And that way we're not pushing back on them. Where are my leads? But this is going to take time, but we're also, pushing them. So it has to be a two-way street where we're communicating with them and that we're explaining what the expectations are, but we also are level setting what our expectations are on return on our end as well. And communicating that throughout our organization, because in our internal organizations, we get pushed back at, okay, we did this campaign, we spent this money, where's the results coming? So it has to be on both sides.
And Laurie, if I can come to you, someone talked about tiering earlier, and I'm not going to get into the whole debate about tiering, but more and more people are beginning to look at capabilities rather than just the transaction. Should marketing be one of those capabilities that really makes you look at a partner in a different way and reward them in a different way?
Yeah, I do. And I think it boils down to one thing I haven't heard yet on the call or on the panel is talking about measurements, right? I think measurements are incredibly important as you're guiding your partner, because what they think when you're providing them with market development funds, they may think, I'm going to go out and do X, Y, and Z, and I kind of like that idea, and I'm going to come around to it, and I'm going to do it again next year. But if you don't have the measurements to say what worked and what didn't work, it's hard to help guide them on a different path for the next year, right? And so I think it's important to have those measurements in whatever marketing activities that they're doing, and that you're able to follow up with the partner and say, okay, we may need to pivot. Right? We may need to pivot and we may need to try something different if you're not seeing the ROI and we're not seeing the ROI for what you're doing in this particular approach, right? Because everybody has to start somewhere, and we've given them, all of us, I think, agree on kind of the starting points. It's been mentioned earlier, like the LinkedIn, the social, the easy hits, right? But as they grow up in the maturity curve there of doing more sophisticated events, when you were referring to something, what I would call maybe ABM or more of that one-to-one personal touch, it's people are getting back into offices now, right? So is it something where we just provide a, centralized website of a bunch of content for that particular partner customer? Or do we say, now let's take it to another level and actually meet the customer on site and do some co-branding and some marketing there and bring it up a level? But if it's not working, the measurements are going to tell us that, right?
And Carlin, dig into those measurements for me. What should you be measuring? Quite often, there's lots of information sitting in different silos. How do you pull it together? What's the experience you've had?
Well, I mean, you definitely need a good reporting system, but I think aligning on what those key metrics are, I mean, they definitely need to be specific. They have to be measurable and achievable. But I'd like to go back just to something that Heather said earlier, because like I think it's important. It's, you know, if you're trying to build that transparency and get the impact that you want from the partners, I think the earlier on you set those expectations and pivot, and maybe they're not transactional kind of KPIs that you're measuring, you know, maybe they're more about building awareness, and then in turn you're also building the trust. So now you can pivot to more of a lead generation, you know, type tactics and things like that then help build revenue, right? And build that trust and that transparency and make them trust you. So I think it just depends on, you know, what the goals are, again, where your partner's at, and then being creative with the things that you're measuring them against, depending on where they're at.
Again, a number of these more recent questions are pretty related too. I think starting with the planning is really that the expectations need to be in a transparent, planned, documented form. So business plans, for example, I think a lot of times people will go through with partners that they think are going to be strategic or emerging. And we may have some sort of high level objectives, but I think planning on a per period basis, very specifically backing into some of those, we want to generate X revenue, right? If we're, you know, speaking of the tiering discussion, not to get into that, right? But what is that going to take based on what we know across other partners who kind of look like you and are in that kind of industry and have your same capabilities? They're able to achieve those kind of results on this sort of demand. In order to do that, we want to do these sort of three things. And so you have not only just sort of an expectation about how you're going to operate in general, but specifically the expectations of what they're going to be putting into that, and also what you as a vendor are going to be putting into that, and you know where that share sort of lies, if you will. So I think a business planning exercise is a really great place to do that, and then it also gives you a basis for you know, sort of benchmark sorts of metrics in our eyes. There was actually a question in the chat about how to, you know, get partners engaged who maybe don't quite see the value in those sorts of things, you know, those kinds of things, on whether or not to tie that to as sort of a reward for generated revenue. But that all comes back to, and you really need that information. It's critical to know for partners who have these capabilities or are in this industry or even are sort of this size and have this sort of maturity. They tend to have a really great ROI on these types of tactics, and these ones don't. So, you know, like friends don't let friends give a small 5-person VAR $20,000 to a trade show booth. That's just, you might as well light it on fire, right? And you kind of need the data to kind of validate that, so it becomes a very dispassionate conversation with the partner. And then conversely, some of these other disinterested partners, you can say, you may have not have done this before, but based off of what we know about you, other partners, you know, have had tremendous success doing this other tactic that maybe you haven't been before. Let's have that discussion instead of maybe the other thing that you want to do, like, which is more email, which is rarely the answer, right? So those kinds of things really you're armed to have when you have both the plan and the you know, revenue tied in KPIs to drive that conversation in a very objective and thoughtful way.
Fabulous. And great question here, Kevin, if you can pick up on this one. Are marketing investments being tied to revenue generated? The more revenue they generate, the more marketing support campaigns the partner receives. Is it as simple as that, or should we make it a little more sophisticated?
Yeah, just simply doing measurements based off of revenue is a huge mistake, because that doesn't necessarily tie to engagement in other activities. You could have one partner who just happened to fall into a couple of large opportunities, and you have another partner who's out there being an evangelist and doing a lot of other things that are building brand over time. So you need to look at more than just revenue. So there are key measurements that you need to think about, like, you know, activity, you know, engagement in your programs, you know, the leads that they're looking at. Think about deal reg. There's a whole lot of factors that you need to consider other than revenue. I think revenue is a very is a misleading indicator. You also need to think about, you know, who are those out there servicing my customers, who are out there getting good reviews for their brand, right? Who are those out there who are influencing that may not also be leading to, you know, a large transaction? So all those are things that you need to consider, not just revenue at the end of the day.
Okay, and Laurie, if I could bring you in, got another great question. What about competition, measuring a partner's performance against other partners? Is that still a strong motivator?
I think it depends on the individual partner and their mission and their goals, right? Because I mean, different partners are in different, I'll keep going back to different stages in their journey. So you can't, I mean, competing partners like that, you can't just say it's one or not, once and done, right? They may have different initiatives and they may have different, they may be at different parts or different maturity levels at their journey, right? So it's taking a look at what is that partner bringing to you, right? Like I would go back to what Kevin was saying as well, is that they're not all equal, right? They're maybe out doing evangelism, or they might be maybe the product or service that they're selling is a longer term sale. So, I mean, you have to take that into consideration versus the shorter term sale. You could have partners that are new players in the field, right? And they want to just bring awareness to who they are as a partner in their first year or their first 12 months. And so I don't think you can, I mean, I think it's basically apples and oranges, right? To do that type of competitive comparison.
I'd love to jump in on that one too, Rod. I agree. I totally agree. I also think there's this new feeling of it's not competition, you versus me, it's personal competition. I want to do better than I did last year. I want to make sure that my team is motivated. And sometimes when you pit partners against each other, if someone's really lagging behind, they'll say, forget it. I'm just going to go over here and sell something else because I'm never going to hit that top whatever. I think spotlighting partners is huge, and not necessarily for being the best, but like, here's a case where these two partners worked really well together and sold this really cool implementation at a children's hospital that ended up helping people because of XYZ. People want to see more of the like military coming home and their dogs running up and everybody's crying. Like, that's what people need more of today, not more of the like, it's you against me and I beat you.
Yeah. And adding on,
Carlin, hang on a sec, Gary. I just wanted to bring Carlin in on something. So, Carlin, if you look, we're getting close towards the end, but there are some issues I really do want to cover. You know, pre-COVID, there were a whole set of things that the partners were doing. During COVID, there was a huge move to digital marketing. We're now in a hybrid world. What are the key things that you can see that are really working with partners today? What are the kinds of marketing activities that you're seeing increasing? What are the ones you're seeing declining?
I mean, I definitely think we're seeing more trudging up of live events. Obviously, everyone's eager to get back on the floor and meet and greet and see each other in person, but I still think there's some weariness. So we're definitely seeing a lot of interest and kind of still, you know, the virtual or co-hosted event type thing as well. You know, we as an organization have hosted, you know, several during the pandemic, and I know everyone's in, you know, Zoom overload and things like that. But I think if you plan the co-hosted event well, I think it definitely resonates with your stakeholders. You know, pulling expertise and experience from a variety of verticals, if you're, you know, mainly focusing on technology, I think is important. You know, those kind of things, I think we're seeing a resurgence of. I know, you know, definitely not events used to kind of run the show, right, pre-pandemic, right? But I think we're seeing that shift kind of pick back up, but not as much as it was prior to the pandemic at all. I think we forced people to go the route of the digital route, you know, and I think they learned something along the way, and they're continuing to market digitally.
Okay, and let's finally, we're almost out of time. There's a few minutes left. There's a couple of questions I have left, and I'm going to ask everyone the same question. And I'm going to pick one off came from the audience. Heather, a concrete example of a campaign that brought great results in the last few months.
Working with Rod Bapty and doing either channel focused virtual. I would say it has to be end to end. So you have a really great downloadable piece of content. You pair that with a webinar. You do digital advertising to it after it's already played. And you're also helping the partners post on LinkedIn and do an email campaign, although I'm a huge fan of newsletters. So it has to be multifaceted. It can't be like, hey, we did a webinar and nobody showed up, so then we didn't do anything.
Excellent. Kevin, an example of a cracking campaign that's brought tremendous results.
Yeah, so just kind of throwing some things out there that people may not be thinking of, and it kind of surprised me. We've seen some trends using TikTok. So TikTok is actually giving a lot of ground in the B2B world. And so leveraging TikTok, we've seen some campaigns that have, had some huge hits from a click and viewing standpoint that have actually led back to actual sales. So I think this is kind of an anecdotal one. We haven't kind of cracked the code on it. Like, how do you make it repeatable? But I think that's something that we're going to see more and more is using TikTok from a perspective to really drive results.
Fabulous. Laurie, same question to you.
So I think businesses got extremely creative over the pandemic, which I love to see the entrepreneurship happen and come through. But we had great success with wine events where they actually package up wine, send it to you ahead of time, and then you get on with your customers or your partners, and you have an actual virtual wine event. Now, doing this globally becomes a little bit of a challenge, but for the people that it might have been later in the evening or even early in the morning, we adjusted the wine to coffee and things like that. So, but I think businesses got extremely creative, and we really saw great results from that innovation and trying something new. If you had to be on Zoom, right, and you had to be virtual, you could have fun doing it. So great success there as well.
I like chocolate, if anyone's trying to
there you go.
Gary, a great campaign.
Yes, I think along the same lines that Kevin noted, that's actually one that we're seeing as well, where sort of expanding the idea of what your partners are, right? There's a lot of influential folks and things out there that even in B2B brands that can have some influence, and there's other avenues than we maybe traditionally think of as, the selling partners are really only part of your overall marketing equation. And so some of the tactics and avenues and things and the channels through which they're reaching out to folks, thinking outside that box, I think are proving to be very effective because they're just different. They're a different voice than folks are used to hearing, and they're not automatically thinking, oh, someone's necessarily trying to sell for me. You're just kind of, you're influencing general brand awareness, brand sentiment, right? And attribution is a little bit tricky there, and I think that's one thing that we're going to need to figure out as we go further down that path. But I think very effective for again, it's a slightly different objective. Maybe you don't necessarily end up with a hard, lead form fill always at the end of those things. But if that's one of your objectives, getting into new market spaces, even new regions. That's a very, different and effective way of doing that.
Fabulous. And Colin?
Similar to kind of what Laurie was talking about, we've been getting a lot of success out of, doing kind of cocktails in a box, right? Where a company kind of puts those together, sends them out, and then you virtually kind of make those cocktails together. Everyone's got the recipe cards. We've done chef hosted things where the ingredients come the day before, and then you're all kind of making the meal together. And I think it's, again, back to that transparency and that relationship building opportunity, seeing someone face to face, doing something outside of work, I think helps you, build a stronger relationship. Someone's more apt to probably purchase something from you if they know you, if they've seen another side of you, rather than just that kind of business self, right? In a business setting, selling your business product, So I think we've seen a lot of success, and they also are very fun and they shake things up. They're not you're still, sprinkling in things about your solution and things like that. And you're creating a forum for conversation and discussion. But I mean, ultimately it's just it's a new way of doing things. And I think it's a lot of fun.
I just want to remind us that our partners are not this sophisticated. So to get on and do a chocolate tasting and have them schmooze the whole time, that's really hard. So if you as vendors are thinking about doing this, you're doing it, and the partners are like, I'm ready, give me those leads.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
Excellent. Well, we're pretty much out of time. That's been a very, very lively hour. Some great contributions. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to our panelists, to Heather, to Carlin, to Gary, to Laurie, and to Kevin. Great job. Lots of insight. It's no longer one size fits all. We've got to be flexible.
Right.
We've got to really understand who our partners are. We've got to think about different ways of measuring what they're doing. And we've basically got to build a program that understands that a lot of them are actually marketing themselves as much as they're marketing you. So some great lessons from the panel. Thank you all very, very much indeed for some really fabulous contributions. And as we end, as you click off, you will see a survey come up. Please, please, please take 2 minutes to complete that survey. We really do want your feedback. But guys, wonderful job. Great insights. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. Happy 25th. You don't look a day over 26.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all. Take care. Cheers.
Bye-bye.